Well, welcome everybody. My name is Jeanette Sheliga. I'm a board member here for the Niagara County Genealogical Society. Tonight I'll be doing a presentation about using newspapers for your genealogy research, which I don't know about you guys, but it's like my absolute favorite area to research my ancestors in. While we're going through the presentation, I have two books that I've purchased, and in case you're like, oh, I wonder if I would ever want to get this book and you want to take a look through the inside of it, Niagara does have a copy of this. It's at the NT library that you can borrow. I'm not sure if anyone has this one yet, but I'll start one here in the front, and you can pass back, and I'll start one in the back, and you guys can then pass forward. I thought that what we would do to start, some of you may have seen this video before. This is a video that takes about 3 minutes, and it shows you newspaper publications starting back in the 1690s. And you can watch on the video where the newspaper started and then how it blossomed. So if I, yep. It's not the right video. Let me try this again. Nope, already having issues. 1 minute in, you'd think that something would go right. Okay, we're there. Click. It's taking me to the other one. There we go. There's just some music that goes with it. Carol, do you mind? Yeah.
Powering on.
So you can start to see over in Boston. So there's two publications. The years up in the left corner. We're up to 4. Starting to populate down along the coast. Civil War. No. Sorry, wrong century. Wrong century. I saw the 62 and I went for it. Revolutionary War. So things are starting to pick up. And then right about now is where they started digging the Erie Canal. It's done. It was a quick 7 years. And then our country really starts to bloom. Then you'll see the California gold rush start to hit. Now the Civil War.
What does the red mean, Jeanette?
I'm not certain. I think maybe a bunch of them, in the same place. So we're about 16,000 publications. 17,000. It'll come back down a little bit. So it kind of peaked there, kind of World War I-ish. And we're down to 15,000. And I want to say this video ends at 2010. I'd be curious even in the last 7 years to see the number go down as newspapers are starting to close, as more online publications have been taking over. This was made by, it's on YouTube under Genealogy Gems for Lisa Louise Cook. It's also the book that's in row 1, was written by her. So we're down to 14,013. I just always have thought that this was a neat visual to show, almost like the history of our country by little white dots. Which doesn't. So it ended at 13,670. that on YouTube. And we're back. I did it. Okay. Is this light level good enough for you guys? Or would you like half the ceiling lights turned on again? Yes, half the lights up, please, Carol.
Hi everyone, Krista Cowan here with another episode of the Barefoot Genealogist. Today I am back in our autumn talk and coming to you.
All right, there's my second awesome presentation. Mistake or what happens. You know, you always, like, technology will always fail you when you want it to work well. So anywho, now let's delve into a little bit about what you would find in newspapers with your genealogy research. This is going to start rather beginning level, and then we will get more advanced towards the end. One thing that is great to find in newspapers are vital records. These are great clues, or they're actually the references to vital records. They're great clues as to help find, you know, birth, marriage, and death records for your ancestors. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that a newspaper article is a secondary source. The person that wrote it or printed it didn't actually witness the birth or didn't actually witness, you know, the death. So, but it's a great secondary resource for you to use. An example of what you might find for a newspaper birth was I found this one. The relative I have is the bottom one, Whitaker. It says, in Richmond, to Mr. and Mrs. Nelson Whitaker, a daughter. Now it doesn't say what the daughter's name is, but I knew I found this in August 1896 paper. So I went to the 1900 census and I found the family, and I found a 3-year-old girl in the family whose birthday was August 1896. So there's a couple things that each one provided me that the other didn't. In the newspaper article, it didn't provide me the daughter's name, Mildred, but it did tell me that she was born in Richmond, whereas the census told me her name, but just kind of references that she was born in Pennsylvania. You know, so if you can use kind of clues from each little bit to put together to help you draw that bigger picture story.
Oh, wait.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
She was born in Richmond, Pennsylvania?
Near Mansfield. It's a township.
Okay, I was thinking Virginia.
Yeah, sorry. It's a little tiny township. She was probably born at home.
And you can get that from the census?
Well, it says, in the census, it says, where were you born? It just says Pennsylvania.
The state of Pennsylvania.
Oh, where they were born, okay.
Right. And then it says birthplace of your father, birthplace of your mother. Now, most likely they were probably living in the same area, and that census was probably in Richmond, but you never know, you know, like, where somebody could be born. So it's just neat to kind of take a clue from a newspaper article and a clue from the census and put them together. Other references you would find in the newspaper often are marriages. Whether they're filing for a license, when they got married, could be elaborate stories about, you know, what they were wearing, who came to, you know, out-of-town guests that came to see it. Just a side note about the licenses, because this happened in my family tree, just because they apply for a license doesn't mean they actually get married. Okay, so just be careful, don't take that as like, yes, I found it finally. Make sure you find the marriage certificate. One thing that you can use for, you know, that newspaper articles can help you with is, you know, kind of naming the people in your photographs and even kind of coloring them in your mind. This was my great-great-aunt Ida, the bride, and in the newspaper article it talks about how her sister was matron of honor, which was to her right. You know, she wore a beautiful gown of yellow georgette over flesh, the skirt having insets of net trimmed with orchid pink and yellow ribbon and ecru lace. She carried yellow Rosalina roses and baby's breath tied with long streamers of yellow tulle. You know, and so I can start to then see that. And my uncle, who's, you know, really big with Photoshop, has even then colored old pictures like that. And, you know, so you can kind of get a neat picture. And I would never know. I mean, you can tell that the dresses weren't dark colored, but, you know, you wouldn't necessarily be able to pick out that they were yellow. You know, so it's kind of a neat thing that you can get from newspapers.
I can't help but think that in the future, 100 years from now, people are going to have a tougher time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't do that much anymore.
Yeah, let's see how long Facebook lasts, or, you know, Instagram. So, yeah, it's going to be different. It really will be. Another thing now, this one I'm not certain about. The other one I'm certain that was her wedding day picture. This one I found an article, these were my great-great-grandparents or great-great-great-grandparents, and there was an article saying that they were celebrating their golden wedding anniversary, and they were going to renew their vows. And if you look at this picture of them, they're both wearing corsages, you know, and the age of them, I can kind of think, you know, it was a special day. Maybe this was the picture of that day. Now, I'm not certain, but I have a little bit of an idea of what is a possibility, which I would never have known without finding the newspaper article. You know, they could just be enjoying this Sunday, probably. But it's a clue. It's another little piece that you can try to put together. And who knows, maybe I'll find down the line a photo album with that picture in it that's written underneath 50th wedding anniversary. You know, like you never know. Newspapers can also help you when people are filing for divorce. This particular article unlocked. I didn't know the date. I knew she got remarried in 1894, but then having the date of February 1893, I was able then to go down to Tioga County, PA, to the it's like the county clerk in Pennsylvania.
Profanatory or
Something,
like
yeah,
that.
and I was able to find all the testimonies from her divorce. The husband had left her, so she had her dad and neighbors all write letters about how he had left and took the bedroom furniture with him, and you know, like all this stuff. Like, but that was because I found it in the newspaper. I didn't have that before then. Death is often sometimes, you know, when we're doing our research, we often, you know, use newspapers to find obituaries and death notices. You know, there can be in there many different ways. It can be, you know, that a death certificate was filed with the county clerk or the city clerk. It could be a story about how a person passed away. You know, the first article here was a week before the person, or it was 1 week before this article. It was just a story saying about how the dad was helping his daughter and son-in-law move, and he got pinned. The stove fell off the wagon or something, and he was pinned against the wall, and it was just news. Well, in the next week, there was his obituary then saying he was badly squeezed between, you know, the wagon and the rear wall of the store. You know, like, so sometimes it's stories that turn into a person's passing. You can also find obituaries and death notices or memorials. Here's an example of an obituary. I like using this one of my great-great-grandmother because it gives lots of clues, even though it's not that long. Right off the bat, it tells me where she passed away, which was in Buffalo, gave me the date that she passed away, and then it says, wife of the late Patrick Larkin. Now I have two more clues, that her husband's name was Patrick Larkin and that he had already passed by that time because they referenced him by saying the late. It says that she's the mother of Ernest V., Mrs. Edward Gosman, so I don't know her daughter's name, but I know her son-in-law, her daughter's husband's name, and the late Albert Larkin. So she also had a son that passed away prior to her death. It also says that she was the sister of Thomas Stratton of Elmira, New York. That's my favorite clue. I just learned her maiden name because that's her brother's last name.
Oh.
And then, you know, funeral from her late residence. I know the address that she lived at, you know, so lots of little clues can come from just a couple lines of text if you really dig into it. Then there's obituaries like this. And don't you wish there was every obituary like this? I mean, they listed the cause and place of her death, who was pallbearers, what cemetery she was interred in, who are her parents' names, the street and date she was born on, where she went to school, the date she got married, the name of her husband, the names of her children, siblings, and where they live, and then the name of her church and other memberships and societies that she happened to be a member of. Yeah.
No, I remember when I was a boy, the Union Sun Journal would have an obituary when the person died, and they would have who they were survived by, what organizations they belonged to, and where the funeral would be and all of that. Well then, after the funeral, there would be another little article with the same person in the obituaries that would say the pallbearers were.
Nice.
But they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. But that's a great tip, though, to look for it. Don't just take that one, check a couple days after the date and see if there's another article. And I will look, actually, let me check Nellie's. See how it says 6, and I want to see that's like a T or something, and then 7. That's telling me that, see how she passed away on August 5th? It's being published in the paper on the 6th and the 7th. So you can find that identical article listed on the next day. The Buffalo paper did that. I'm not certain if every paper did, but you know, that can help you in case you're wondering what that was about. Again, linking clues from different things. Earlier I showed, you know, a picture in an article, or the census in an article. Here's a headstone, and I don't know, and I don't know if you guys have had similar experiences than I have, but sometimes I forget, and I get so excited that I'm filling in things on my tree that I hadn't yet found. And yay, I found the headstone. I was in Randolph, New York. I found it, I took the picture, got to put it up on Find a Grave, you know, yay, go me. Then you look at it, and you take a step back and you start to realize what's happening here. So this is the McKinnon D headstone. It has the father on top and his dates, and it says his wife and Elizabeth, and for some reason they never etched in the years that she passed away. And then there's Katie, Felix, and Jenny. Do you see all the years that they passed away? So I would, you know, just put it in my tree, you know, not realizing, don't know what happened. Well, I found an article, now they passed away in 1877. Found a newspaper article in 1915 that the parents were celebrating their golden anniversary. And I'll read to you because I couldn't make it any bigger without it starting to pixelate. It's up here in the right-hand side. 6 children were born to the couple, 3 of whom died in 1877. Many of the older residents of the town will remember with great affliction which came into their lives, or remember this great affliction which came into their lives. The 3 children were stricken with scarlet fever, and at the same time a singular coincidence in connection with the death of the 2 girls, one 8 and the other 3 years old, is recalled. The sisters passed away at exactly the same minute, and just 1 week later the little boy, 5 years old, died. You know, and that's just... Then I went, oh my gosh, like it made me step back and appreciate what I was doing. And sometimes I think I need that kick a little bit, that these were people, and I can't even imagine what their house was that week. Like just, you know, at your baby's side, you know, and just, I can't, you know, so I would have never known that or appreciated that had I not found the article. One of the reasons I love newspapers. Using newspaper articles, this is great for if, you know, not only do we need to research our tree going straight up, but sometimes you get stuck. And then, you know, if you use other types of research, other strategies, techniques, such as cluster and collateral research, newspapers can help you with that sometimes, help you break that. Cluster research is when you're researching the non-relatives in your ancestor circles or neighbors. Like if you can't find your family in the census, but you knew they had to have been there, try searching for the neighbor's name. Like you've got the neighbor in 1910, 1920, and you can't just find your family in 1930. Look for the neighbor's name in 1930, and if they're still neighbors, you know, maybe your family's name was just misspelled, and that would help you. You know, similar things might happen, you know, with non-relatives. If you had a person that was listed, you know, in newspaper articles, you know, that she was the maid of honor in your grandmother's wedding and things like that, you know, maybe there might be some other articles that might come up with the two of them together. Collateral research is, instead of going in your direct line, if you're stuck, try researching the siblings, because who knows, maybe a sibling would have an obituary like that one where I said it listed like everything about like the parents and the family and where they grew up, whereas your relative might have had a smaller obituary. You know, so try researching the siblings and the cousins and kind of going sideways to get up. That might help you out. Don't just limit your newspaper research to where the event happened. You know, newspapers wanted to sell, and they would do so by, you know, printing things that they thought would help make them money. So news of what was happening. You know, so an event that happened in Buffalo, I also found an article for it in Wellsboro, PA, because the bride's mother grew up in Wellsboro. Yeah. Yeah, we can just put them, you know, if anyone else needs it, we can, thanks. And so, the stories. Love the stories that you can find in newspapers. A couple of examples is I never knew Great Aunt Winifred was singing in a theater in Tonawanda. Never knew. Even then, once I found it, I started asking family, and they're like, wait, what? Like, her descendants. They're like, no. Another fun article is that my great-grandmother would play for weddings. You know, like she was a hired musician. So I got, you know, Aunt Winifred singing. I got my great-grandmother playing piano. My fourth great uncle was confined for insanity. The judge found him insane, and so he hit the sheriff with a pole and escaped and went over the hills to his home. Or there's my third great grandfather that was found clad in his underwear and overcoat, banging on his neighbor's door, saying that someone was trying to, you know, find him, and they had to sit him down and calm him down. So if anything of those stories, I come from a long line of musicians and mentally insane people. Extra good. But the stories help, you know, they help paint the picture and understand what's happening in your ancestors' lives. Go ahead.
So how did you look for these stories?
I searched by name.
Okay.
I searched by a person's name, and then the articles would come up. Now, as we progress, I'm going to show you some websites that you can go to, and some search techniques on how to find these. So news you might find, you know, often there's sometimes one little lines of who went visiting. Sometimes those can be helpful. You know, visited her grandmother and you know, who was sick. They could be business advertisements if your ancestor owned a business. You know, estate sales. You can find, you know, I found a bankruptcy, you know, thing on one of my families, or a foreclosure notice, you know, maybe would help explain if your ancestors were having a hard time. You can find, you know, what political party maybe they were membership of. You know, there's articles I found on my grandfather where he was in World War II and wrote a letter home, and his mom shared the letter in the newspaper that she had heard from him and things like that. You know, there's articles where people would, you know, they're immigrants and they're trying to find their family, and so they would pay to post it in the newspaper. Hey, are you this person? Call me. You know, there's graduation lists on church affiliations and events, things like that. Lots of different types of articles that you can find.
Right.
Yeah.
What kinds of information do sheriff sales have?
That was again property type of thing. Yeah, that's what I found with that. So
The sheriff was involved in that?
that's the article I found. Yeah, in fact, it's on my very, very last slide is an image of it, so we can look at it when we get there.
Because the property was confiscated?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So some places of where you might start to find newspapers is at home. You know, ask your family and friends. Maybe you've inherited some. You know, some people would create scrapbooks and glue them down on the page. So you can find lots of, if there's a family scrapbook that has it glued down, a couple different ways that you can do that depending on, how sturdy the book is. Just turn it over and then create a scan that way. Don't try to actually remove it from the page because there's probably something glued on the other side of the paper. But then also if the book is too brittle for you to be putting up and down on a thing, you can get a flip pail scan. It's a handheld scanner, and then you can place it on top of the book and then scan it that way. I have found them in photo albums. I never had these obituaries without that. My searches never came up with those, so that was a neat little find for me. Some people also will tuck, into books, or Bibles, obituaries and things like that. If you do have newspapers, they're printed on very thin paper. It's acidic. Make a copy. It's going to yellow. You know how it doesn't stay in pristine shape for long. So definitely scan and make a copy. Make a couple copies, put some at a second location, scan them, upload them into your family tree somewhere so that you have extra copies of them. One thing that I've learned is that you're not supposed to laminate them because the paper is acidic. If you cut off its air supply, it's just going to eat itself up that much faster. And that was like the thing too. Like it was like laminate, and now they've learned, if it's something particular newspaper article that you really do want to preserve the way it is, if you don't want to do like a high quality scan of it to print out, like say you want to have it in one of those shadow boxes, make sure that it's not in direct sunlight. But you can get archival paper and things to keep it in. You can do lots of research on how to preserve and things like that, and just keep it in a humidity controlled environment and out of direct sunlight. That could be its own presentation. So a lot of times with our genealogy, geography is connected into it. Where our ancestors lived is where they've created the most records. So being kind of like a little detective, you kind of have to start and go, okay, well my ancestor lived here. What newspapers were there at the time that my ancestor lived? And if there wasn't any in the township they were, what was the nearest paper? What years did they run? And then if you can't find it, or if you found a paper, maybe the paper that was before it merged with that one or changed its name. Like the Sun and Journal used to be two different papers, right? They've merged. So check and learn what existed. How to do that? Contact the area, contact the Historical Society, contact the library, say, hey, I'm doing research in the area, can you help me out? What were the newspapers that were there? Places might already have tried to collect some of the work for you, like our society, like historical societies, historians' offices. Everyone recognizes the value of the articles that have been around. So contacting those local resources, the libraries, the historians, the genealogical societies might help you out finding some articles that you didn't know of. At libraries and societies, a lot of times they'll be organized in card file systems or manila folders. They'll have them often in different things. It could be by title, it could be by subject, could be by name, to try to help you find. Right here in our library upstairs, we have file folder drawers that have manila folders in them by surname, by last name. And, the Historical Society and the members of the Genealogical Society, they save articles that they find and clip them and put them into these manila folders. And so, we have them here for Niagara County. I'm certain other counties also have them. I found this one at the Randolph. As I said, I was down in Randolph. This was at the Randolph Public Library. It was just tons of articles about my family right there in that folder, and I just had to pay a quarter to make a copy. It was wonderful. Back when I started, before all the digitization and everything, someone had gone and made a book. They had transcribed all the birth, marriages, and deaths listed in this one newspaper. You can see how they had it. It was kind of by date. It was January 20th, Whitaker, daughter to Charles A. of Buffalo, born in Elmira Heights, New York, January 17th. So January 20th was the date that it was in the newspaper, but it referenced the date she was born. So I later went and found the actual article that it was in the paper. Sorry, got my back to school cold. A lot of libraries, local libraries like the NT Library has a copy, on microfilm of the Tonawanda News. The Lockport Public Library has microfilms of the Union Sun and Journal, and before when they were the separate ones. You can do interlibrary loans. I believe that with New York State, anything that's in the state library system, that you should be able to interlibrary loan to your library if there's a film out there that hasn't yet been digitized. If that's not an option, there's also Random Acts of Genealogical Kindness, which is a group that you can go online and say, hey, someone in the Syracuse area, if you wouldn't mind, pretty please, going to see if you can get on the microfilm at the library and find an obituary for me, and then they can email you a copy or mail it or whatever, and then you just reimburse them for the cost of their copying or what have you. That might help save you a road trip, or road trips are always fun. Like if you want to go to Syracuse, go to Syracuse. Excuse me, just 1 second. So the newspapers have been mostly microfilmed, which is a high quality picture of the page. However, then someone takes that microfilm and then they make a copy, and then this library wants a copy, and then this genealogical society gets a copy of a copy of a copy, and your film starts to look like this. And so, unfortunately, we're dealing with that sometimes. And so maybe and I found this true on Family Search versus Ancestry, same identical image. One site looked way better than the other one. So shop around. Even if you found it and can't read it, you might be able to find a different copy of that same image that might be a better, easier to read. So digitizing newspapers, this has been very big. Actually, digitizing everything right now has been pretty big, as Family Search is no longer loaning their films because they're really making a push to put all of their microfilms online. It's really going out. Microfilm will be around. I feel both ways about it. Being able to research anytime I want from home is very convenient. However, the image quality on the microfilm oftentimes for me is a better quality than the digital copy I can get on my computer, because the resolution just doesn't quite get there. Even I've been at the Grosvenor Room at the Buffalo Public Library, and I had the film, and I put it on the old machines where they're like, we don't use those anymore. I'm like, I know, I got it. I'm like, and I hit print, and it's like so clear and everything. Or if I go over to their new machines and I print from there, the same film. It wasn't even, I didn't change film, it was the same film. The image was just that much grainier. However, when you're, can't sleep at night, and the amount of information that you can find by doing a digital search is just amazing. And all those references, most of the examples I gave you were things that I did find online, and so I wouldn't have had those had we not been digitizing newspapers. So how does it work? Well, when you do a Google search for something, you type in and you get hits. Well, the problem is that a computer now is trying to read the text, on the picture, and it's called OCR, or optical character recognition. But you know how I mentioned the copy of the copy of the copy? The poor computer is doing its best. Now you and I can understand that first bullet says election today. But if you were to do a search and try to search for the word election, the computer might not come up with that as a result. So we have to be, still are detectives, and still sometimes page by page, but on the computer now, to find the articles that we're looking for. So much has happened in the last 10 years, but still in a large scheme of things, you know, not all of the newspapers have been digitized. You know, you need to keep checking back in a month and in 6 months and in a year, and more results are going to be there as more and more are being digitized. If the town or city that your ancestor lived in, though, has been, you know, I don't know about you guys, but I've been on Fulton History past midnight. Nobody? Okay, yeah, all right. I wasn't alone, okay. You know, and coming up later, he's adding a whole bunch at the end of the month. So, a couple of websites where you can do some searches for your ancestors. One of them is Newspaper Archive. A 6-month subscription is $49.95. However, before you pay the $50, there is a 7-day premium thing that you can get for $6.95, and then just like really research for those 6 days, you know, 7 days, and then cancel. You should check. They have every single paper that's on their site listed in a list. So if you've already know what's available and you only want, you know, the Niagara Gazette, don't pay the money for a website that doesn't carry the Niagara Gazette in their collection. So make sure that you check what's available to you before you sign in. Now, that's not to say that even though you think your ancestors only listed in the Niagara Gazette, that they're not going to be listed in the Tonawanda News, you know, like, and maybe this website has the Tonawanda News, or, you know, go in, you know, get 7 people to all chip in $1. Wait, that's not on, erase that from the video, I didn't say that. You know what I mean, like, you know, you don't have to get it for the whole 6 months, you know, if you be smart about it. This is all the pin drops are the places that Newspaper Archive has newspapers for New York State. And that might only be for a certain run. You know, they might, it looks like they've got, you know, the Rochester area, let's say they've got the Democrat Chronicle, but maybe it's only for 10 years. You know, like, so you have to check the dates too. Ancestry.com, if you have a subscription to Ancestry, has newspapers on there. If you go to the top where you go to the search, and you drop down to the card catalog, then when that pulls up, you know, you can search there for one of their collections, but you'll see it right there, newspapers and publications. And then you can filter by year, but you can also filter by place. And so I filtered by New York State. You'll notice they don't happen to have any from Niagara or Erie County on there. But, you know, it can't hurt to try. I just kind of pulled up. So say there is one on Ancestry that you did like. These were the ones that they had in Chautauqua, and I clicked on the top one on the Dunkirk Evening Observer. And if you scroll down, it'll then tell you more information about it. And it'll say the dates from 1827 to 1950. So if your ancestor passed away in 1952 and you're looking for the obituary, you're not going to find it because their collection stopped in 1950. So even if you think you found it, make sure you scroll down and check the source information to check the dates on there. If you are an Ancestry member, those newspapers I was talking about are included in your membership. If you have the regular U.S. or World Explorer, all those newspapers are there. But Ancestry has not added to that collection for a while. They created a sub-company, a separate company called newspapers.com. And so what they have on there won't go away, but they're not adding new newspapers because they want you to pay the extra to go subscribe to newspapers.com. So you can do it 2 ways. You can keep your regular U.S. Ancestry thing for $99 for 6 months, And then you can go and subscribe to newspapers.com, or you can upgrade your Ancestry to the All Access Pass for $199 for 6 months, and you'll see that newspapers.com is included in your access. So is Fold 3. Newspapers.com has over 3 million pages on it. When I last did this presentation 3 years ago, it only had 71 million. I'm like, nice, they're making a lot of progress in 3 years, right? 71 million to over 300 million. And then I looked at it. I looked in the choose your subscription. Okay, so they've got newspapers.com basic. There's 116 million. And then newspapers.com publisher extra, which is the 199 million plus. So wait a minute. They've only really gone from 71 million to 116 million, which is still wonderful. The over 300 million is if you add these two together. And if you read this, it says everything in newspapers.com basic, and then 109 million in additional pages licensed from publishers. I'm like, okay, all right, so wait, what? So I looked at what newspapers and publisher extra editions are. Look at the dates. Most of them are up to current. Now that might be helpful, but like, just again, just be aware of what you're buying. If you're just hoping for older newspapers, like maybe the basic is all that you might need, and you might not need to get that publisher extra to get, the current pages. This is an image similar to the other one, the newspapers.com New York State thing. And I'm sorry, I tried to blow it up as nice as I could without it getting too bad. This is kind of the list of what's available in Buffalo, where it says 27 on the pin of what they have there. As I mentioned, Fold 3 before is another Ancestry subsidiary. It's $79.95 for a membership there, or you can get a $7.95 1-month membership. And then it's mostly a military records website, but they do have a couple newspapers on there, so I just thought I'd share that with you. Genealogy Bank is another subscription site. It's $69.95 for a year, or $9.95 for a month. So it seems like people have caught on to the fact that, once you've exhausted that record, unless they add a new collection, you're not going to be grabbing that much. So people have started to come up with these 1-month subscription, so that, hey, if where my ancestors lived, if they have a newspaper on there for $10, I would definitely do that. Spend my month, get everything I can from it, and then I will go back to that website and check in 6 months and a year and see what new newspapers they've added on. Maybe I'll get another month subscription. Genealogy Bank it says over 7,000 big city and small town newspapers, over 250 million obituaries, and over 327 years of newspaper archives. But this right here is a little bit of what it had in our area, like the Lockport of Buffalo. But again, if you look at, it's got the Buffalo News, it's only 1989 to current. So check the dates when you're, if you're hoping to get a certain subscription or a certain newspaper. The Library of Congress has newspapers on it, part of their Chronicling America campaign. It's absolutely free. It's very easy to use, but they're quite slow. Since 2007, they only have 12 million pages digitized. And so, just in 3 years alone, newspapers.com went from 71 million to 116. And Library of Congress has been going for 10 years, and they've got 12 million total. So not a lot's on there, but it's free and it's easy to use. So that's available for you. This is again just kind of what we have in the area. There was 156 search results for it looks like Lockport, Niagara Falls, things like that. But a lot of them were just like 1 year, or a lot was like 1855 to 1806 question mark. Like, so it was a little unclear as to the years range on there, but give it a shot. You never know what you might find. Google used to digitize newspapers and stopped, but what they have is on there, and the link for that is on the handout towards the bottom. Again, maybe that's the town where your ancestors lived, and that's going to break your genealogy wide open, so that's available for you there. One thing that you would like to set up while I was talking about Google is something that's called a Google Alert. If you go to google.com/alerts, you can set up with a person's name, and save it as an alert. Then anytime Google sends its little spiders out and finds a new hit of that name, it'll send you an email with a link to the website that it found it on. So it might find it in a newspaper article, a web page, a blog. I got 2 hits this week because apparently we posted that I was doing this, and I found myself. I'm like, yay! So setting up a Google Alert might help you, make Google do the searching for you. All right, and what I said before, I said that I believe, and this is what I have written down for the slide, New York State citizens had access to the resources of the state library through their local library system. It says that you can borrow up to 5 reels of film per request, and I found that information here at the New York State Newspaper Project website. Now this website though, basically what happened is they started a project and they collected all the newspaper microfilms and made a copy of the state. And they worked on this from 1987 to 2007. And in 2007 they finished. They're like, yay, we're done. We found all the microfilms in New York State. We made a copy, so we've preserved the newspaper records. So because the project is done, this website, a lot of the pages at the bottom says hasn't been updated since 2013. This website though at least will give you, if you see here, a city or county list. How we talked earlier about if you're looking for what newspapers were available, in the place where your ancestors lived. So in New York State, you can go to this website and then find all the newspapers listed that were there. And then it gives you the microfilm numbers. Then you can, in theory, I haven't done this myself, go to your library and say I want to request an interlibrary loan from the state and order that film to come to your library. Let me take a step and then. Do you remember the Heritage Digital Collections website? Have you guys used that? It's where libraries have gotten together and they started digitizing photographs that the libraries own and things like that, letters, scrapbooks. Part of their project was also newspapers, but I think it got rather large for them. And so the Northern New York Library Network was digitizing their newspapers, and they got together with the Heritage Digital Collections, and so the newspapers moved off of the Heritage Digital Collections, and now they changed the Northern New York Library Network to the New York State Historic Newspapers website. It has 7 million pages available. Now, I was talking about how I thought the Library of Congress's 12 million was a little small. But this is 7,000 pages of just New York. So not, whereas the Library of Congress is doing the whole country. This is very well done. It's set up very similarly to the Library of Congress, very user-friendly. If you have an ancestor in New York State, you might be able to find them here, and they're adding records to it. So definitely if you don't come with a hit now, check again and see if in 3 months, if a newspaper hasn't been added, that you can find when you get to this page, you can click on the county and bring up the, just the newspapers in that county, or you can just search kind of through all of them.
And this one is free?
Yeah, free. I went and checked, and this is what they carry for Niagara County newspapers. So, Fulton History. Yes.
When I go to a newspaper, say Fulton History or where the previous one you mentioned, I don't know how to turn the page. If I want to look at other pages in the newspaper, I don't know how to do it.
In the other, I'm not sure how to do it on the last one. I'm going to show you how to do it on Fulton now. So, as I said at the beginning, we're going to go kind of from a beginner level to an intermediate level. If some of what I mentioned goes over your head, I apologize up front. I did make kind of a detail thing of what I'm going to talk about on the back of your handout. And Carol's been recording me. If it's something you're like, oh, I remember she said this, but I don't exactly remember how she did it, this will be posted to YouTube. And then you can go and watch me and then hit pause and rewind it a little bit, rewatch it again, or, my email address is on there, also, it was confusing to me at first too. And it took me listening to and playing around with it for a while for me to get comfortable with it. So please don't lose faith. The website is worth it. What I'd like to do first is kind of describe a little bit. So Fulton History is a website where just one gentleman, not an institution, has made it, he's retired, has made it his kind of project to digitize New York State newspapers. And he's digitized over 30 million of them. And so much so that he started to expand on into other states in Canada. I don't know if some of you have watched this video, but it's just a short little video about the creator of this site. So I'll show that to you. And when I turn it back on, I think another video might start with it. I don't know, because I turned this off.
Powering on.
Okay, Carol, yeah.
So, you need,
No.
Is the day-to-day life that you could not imagine today. Reading the actual newspaper seems to bring back into current context, and that's what a lot of people get a kick out of. They'll sit there and it's like they move back into that time and they're actually living the same time that their grandparents or great-grandparents were there.
14 years ago, retired engineer Tom Triniski started scanning old newspapers and then making them searchable free of charge online.
Now we got the radio, the television, the internet. So back then, that was it.
Triniski's website, which he runs out of his home in the small town of Fulton, New York, has grown into one of the largest digital collections of historic newspapers anywhere in the world.
There's nobody helping me. I'm a one-man band.
Consider the Library of Congress's newspaper site, Chronicling America. The National Endowment for the Humanities has awarded $22 million in grants for the project, and there are now 5 million newspaper pages on the site. Tom Triniski has 22 million newspaper pages on his site, and he's spent nothing but his own time and money. Triniski's site also gets about double the amount of web traffic, with 6 million page views per month.
These people are on there 24/7. During the nighttime, as the hours change, you got people from the foreign countries coming on there looking up stuff.
The capacity of computers to locate keywords buried anywhere in an old newspaper has opened a vast body of knowledge to researchers. Before old newspapers were digitized, they were photographed and rolled up into microfilm.
Even though the data might have existed in that newspaper, you wouldn't find it because there's just so many rolls of film you got to look through to find that little bit of text.
The advent of scanners that read microfilm made it possible to make a digital copy of an old newspaper without going back to the original paper version. Triniski, who's a high school graduate, purchased his first microfilm scanner for $3,500 in a fire sale in 2003. He installed a keyword recognition program, set up a network of PCs to do the heavy processing, and began uploading the images to a server that's located in a gazebo right on his front deck.
Once the computers come along, people would just type into the search engine the name. It would find it in the newspaper, and it would get something that is instantaneous. They can do it from home, and it doesn't cost them a nickel.
Of the 500 papers available on the site, the largest in terms of page volume is the Brooklyn Daily Eagle.
The Brooklyn Daily Eagle is the best. As far as headlines goes, the pictorials, what they covered, and the depth of information we went out and got.
The Daily Eagle was among the most widely read and influential newspapers in 19th century America. Poet Walt Whitman wrote over 800 items for the paper and served as its editor from 1846 to 1848. During the Civil War, the Daily Eagle had the largest circulation of any evening paper in the United States. The Brooklyn Public Library spent 2 years and about $400,000 digitizing just the first 62 years of the Daily Eagle's run, which totaled about 150,000 pages. That was back in 2003. For the last 10 years, the library has been trying to raise money to finish the job. In the meantime, Tom Trinisky digitized the entire 115-year run of the newspaper.
Basically did the project all myself. It took me approximately 4 months to do the complete newspaper, from start to scanning to the finished product, which the OCR would recognize.
The Brooklyn Public Library's Daily Eagle site and the Library of Congress's Chronicling America meet professional cataloging standards. They have fewer keyword recognition errors, and they're easier to search for casual users. Trinisky's website, which includes swimming fish and the occasional live video stream of squirrels eating corn on its front deck, looks nothing like that of an institutional library.
We also have a picture of myself as an old spider on there, and it's called the original web crawler. So you can come to my site and say, this is gaudy, it's crazy, I'll never come back to it. That's not the point of it. The point is the newspapers that I have available for free, forget the interface. Once you hit the search button, all that stuff disappears and you get to see the newspaper.
There have been about 150,000 different newspapers in America, going back to colonial times. Many of them still languishing in archive stacks and microfilm rolls, out of reach for keyword recognition software.
I'm not going to make really a big dent in it. I'm doing a lot, but there's so much newspapers out there. It's phenomenal. I get a lot of satisfaction making people happy finding the information. It's just that it's really nice looking back in time and reading about what was going on.
So that was a couple years ago. And since then, you know, he's even added that many more articles. On his Facebook, which you can like him on Facebook, FultonHistory.com, he announced a couple weeks ago that he's adding 1,400,000 more pages September 30th. So in just a couple more days, there's going to be a whole bunch more for you to search through. So the screenshot was from today. So there's 39 million pages on his website for free that you can search through. And he's changed it from New York State. It used to say, you know, New York State newspapers. Now it's historical newspaper pages from the USA and Canada. But it's still, the bulk of it is New York State. So I'm going to give you some tips on searching on his site. A couple things that I do right off the bat is if I'm searching for a person's name, there's kind of 4 options. There's all of the words, any of the words, the exact phrase, and Boolean. If you use all of the words and you're looking for Bob Smith, it's going to give you results for everything that says Bob and everything that says Smith and Bob Smith. So that can be hard to do. Any of the words, again, it would get you very heavy results. The exact phrase is where I tend to kind of start. That's what I pick, and that might, no, it's not on the thing. So I tend to start with the exact phrase to kind of filter that out. Now that doesn't mean that, you know, I'm not going to play with it. You know, like my grandpa went by the name Jack, but he was John. You know, so if I'm doing the exact phrase, I need to search twice and then maybe even throw in his middle initial and things like that. But I'm going to give you some other tips to get around that. The other thing I like to do, or 2 things, I like to change my fuzziness up a little bit. Fuzziness is, so if something's misspelled, maybe the INE is flipped or something like that, or an extra, thing, you can up your fuzziness to 10. The fuzzier you get though, the more, results you're going to get that you need to filter through those. So, play around with it and see, change it, put your fuzziness at 4, find your fuzzy comfort zone. And then there's no wrong answer. The other thing I like to do, if you look up here, it says sort type name. I like to change it to name. It starts off on hits, then there's date, name, and size. Name will give you your results back alphabetized by newspaper. So if I do a result, or if I do a search for somebody, it's all over the place. Syracuse, New York, Brooklyn, like everywhere. If I sort it by name, it starts with an A, starts with Albany, I just have to keep scrolling until I get to Buffalo, or keep scrolling until I get to Lockport. But then all the Lockport results are together. All of the Buffalo paper results are together. So that's where I like to kind of have my thing to start, my search. So let's start with an example. Now, I went to the Grosvenor room, and before these were microfilmed on Fulton History, I looked up my great-great-grandmother's obituary. And so I printed it off of the microfilm, put a sticky note on it to kind of source where I got it from. And so I got this out of the Buffalo Evening News, Saturday, November 28th, 1942, page 12. If I was to search for this exact obituary on the Fulton History site, and if I try all of the words or any of the words for Ida Preston, both of them are off more than 5,000 results for me to kind of go through. That's too many. If I did exact phrase, I get 212 results. But look here, I still wouldn't find it, because if I search for Ida Preston, look at what my family did when they named in the obituary. They put her middle name in. I wouldn't get it unless I wouldn't have even thought to add her middle name. I'm going to show you how to get around it. We're going to get there. So, but still, switching it down to the exact phrase really narrowed the results, and you could find some good things in there. So, I'm going to do a little bit of Boolean searching. And I'm sorry, again, if it's small, but Boolean is kind of like using your and or not, things like that. If you want to search apple and pear, or say you wanted to search Lincoln, not Abe, and things like that. You can do stuff like that. My favorite Booleans are the and then see how it says W/5? That's shorthand for within 5 words. So on my previous example, if I had searched for Ida within 5 words of Preston, I would have gotten that hit result. And that helps because a lot of times in obituaries it'll say Preston, like that's the bullet, and then dash, and then the first name of the person that passed away. So Boolean, we're gonna get into Boolean a little bit. If I just did a Boolean search, you know how I said on this page I got over 5,000 hits? If I just in the search box put Ida within 5 words of Preston, I get 1,810 results. So it still narrowed it down from the 5,000. But it's 1,800 is a lot to dig through as well. I'm going to get it down. I'm going to show you. Okay, so on the website, Fulton History, if you go up on the top and you go to the FAQ Health Index and you click on that button, it's going to pull up this screen. This is on the back of your paper. Okay, so it's on the back if you want to kind of follow it a little bit. I tried to bullet point it out. So click on the FAQ, and then in the first sentence, there's this click here. So you actually click on the word here. When you do, it takes you to a page that looks like this. So the way he made his website It's not alphabetical. It's when he added on each newspaper. And they're all PDF. Okay, they're all on there at that. So his very first one he did was a newspaper at Essex County. Okay, and each one he adds is on there. So if I'm trying to find the Buffalo paper, you have to look through all of these, and he's up to 11 pages. And there's like 10 rows on each. So it's a little hard to find what it is you're looking for. So, and again, Carol, maybe if you could just turn them off for a second, because the colors he used. Do you see the blue up at the top? It says, click here to download a Microsoft Excel file. Okay, he has all of the 11 pages on an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so if you click on that, that's good, Carol, thank you. If you click on that, you're going to download an Excel spreadsheet where he has all of his, like this is an example of page 10, and see how it's like row 8, row 9? So on page 10, row 8, he's got Lake County, Lackawanna, Smithtown, Northwood, New York, and then on row 9, New York, Plattsburgh, Buffalo Evening News. So I know when I want to find the Buffalo Evening News, I need to go to page 10 of this page. So this is page 1. There's little blue numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I need to go to page 10, scroll down to row 9, and I'm going to find a little box that says Buffalo Evening News. Now if I was to click on that, there's folders, and every single PDF is uploaded in those folders. But that's, a lot, just so you know where the files actually are. Okay, so I went to page 10, I scrolled down to row 9, there's the Buffalo Evening News. I'm trying to find that obituary of Ida Preston, or it was listed as Ida Jean Preston. And the dates on the Buffalo Evening News are 1881 to 1963. So he's got that whole microfilm basically in one folder. Okay? All those years are in one folder. What you need to do, if you want to search within just that newspaper, so you're not going to get the results of every single newspaper that's on there, just within the Buffalo News, you need to click and copy how he has that exactly written. Don't go, oh, it's Buffalo Evening, every space, or, if he has a dash, or if he spells it wrong, you have to spell it wrong too. So copy the title of the folder that you want to search in. Okay, so once you've got it copied, go back to the search box. Paste it into the search box. So I copied, Control C, or right click C, whatever you need to do. And then I clicked in the box and I hit paste. Okay, and the directions are there. So I'm so sorry if this is going fast. They're written down, okay? Now, in order for it to search within, you have to change the dash to 2 tildes. And they're to the right of the 1. So you hit shift and then that button, and you create 2 tildes. Now, the nice thing with this is I don't have to search. I know about when she died. I don't have to search from 81 to 63. I'm going to narrow down those search results. And just for fun, I left it a 4-year range. So I changed the years that he had. I only want to search from 1940 to 1944. And then I did a search for Ann Preston. This is how many references were in the Buffalo paper that had the word Preston in it for those 4 years. Got me 2,933 results. That's not good enough. So, I changed it to Ann Ida within 5 words of Preston. And you don't have to use 5. You can use 7, 10, 3, whatever number you want. I got 5 results. The 5th one is the obituary. Okay, so if you click on it, page opens up to the right of it, zoom in, and there's the obit. And it's a PDF, so you can download it, you can print. What I like to do is I like to make clips. That's a whole different thing if you're Mac or Windows, but you can get clip it tool, or I take a screenshot, put it in Paint, and then I've got a copy of that. Just curious, way over, or no, is it okay with the directions? Okay, yeah, yes.
What does Boolean mean?
I don't know what that means. It's a way to search.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, all of the words, any of the words, the exact phrase Boolean, maybe all the approximations?
Yeah. Yeah. And when you do that, just so you know, and I forgot to say that, so I'm glad you brought that up, Gail. If you put that in and then you have it accidentally on all of the words or any of the words, you need to switch it to Boolean for it to work. Because that's the type of searching you're doing. Okay? I hope that helps. A couple other tips for Fulton. You had asked about page by page. What if the article you want says continued on A3? You have no idea what word to search for or even to try to get it to go to that page. And as he said in his video, it's not a user-friendly site, but the content is so worth it. You figure it out. You make yourself figure it out. So if you notice, anytime in your search results, like the article that I had found, the obituary I was looking for, so it says Buffalo, New York Evening Times, 1942, and then it's 105 or 10518.pdf. Copy that, put it in the search result, and change the 8 to a 9, and that's the next page. Now, change it from Boolean to the exact phrase, okay? And then when I hit the search result, I got 2. I'm not sure what that first document is, but the second one is the next page. Okay, and you can do that too. If you're searching and you're it's in another week, change it from 10,519 to 10,529. Kind of jump ahead a little bit and then look at the top of the paper and see what week you are. So that's the way on Fulton History to do this, to get there. Is that okay? Yeah? All right. Coming close to the end. One article that I found was by searching on Fulton by address. I never knew this happened, but my ancestor collapsed at a street corner. The newspaper had his middle name accidentally as his first name in the article, so any search results I didn't come up with it because I wasn't searching by his middle name. I didn't even know his middle name. This gave me his middle name. But I searched by his address, which was 77 East Tupper, and I got that. And so that told me the story of what happened to him. So search by address is wonderful. You can see when your family's selling furniture. When they were arrested, got lots of those in my family. It's very good. Search by address. And another one is, try using initials. Again, this is a hard article to see, but I could not find this one. I had to page by page, because I'm like, come on, he had all this family. How did he not have an obituary? Look at what they did. Whitaker, suddenly, in this city, February 24th, 1926, John E. His first name was so far from his last name, I wasn't spreading it far enough to get the result. I think I eventually found it by throwing in, maybe I searched for Whitaker and McEnroy. Kind of 2 last names, that to search within. Because and then all of the relatives, the siblings, they used initials for the first names. They didn't spell out anyone's name. It was a very frustrating obituary. It felt very rewarding when I found that one. Women, unfortunately, sometimes aren't listed under their names. Mrs. Felix McKinnon D died. Sometimes you have to search for a husband or search for her children, things like that. Try searching for Mrs. So-and-so when you're doing your searches, to try to help find a woman woman listed. And then the books I passed around. This is the Louise Cook one. It's $24.95. You can purchase it at her website, or as I said, Niagara has a copy. The other one I passed around was this one. It's on Amazon for $11.15. And then while I was on Amazon getting that screenshot, I saw this book's coming out in February. So there's a new book coming out soon, and that's priced for $19.99. So there's some books for you to get if you're looking to read up more on the topic. Also, if you go to YouTube and you do a search for like genealogy newspapers, a lot of people, including Ancestry.com, have done videos on search tips and ways to, research things like that. So use that as a resource too.
To find your YouTube, what do we put in?
Niagara County Genealogical Society, I think.
Yeah.
And then, is it under NCGS? Like,
It's under Niagara County.
Niagara, spell it out.
Yeah.
So do a YouTube search for Niagara County Genealogical Society, and any presenters such as me or other presenters that have said okay, you'll find the past programs we had on here for the last couple years. So you're like, oh, I was sick that time, and you can go back and watch it. Do you guys have any questions about newspapers? I know it's very warm in here, so we're a little quiet. Go ahead.
I was on a site one time for some Iowa papers, and what I did was I wanted to go through every paper in a certain time period and find, let's say, the Waterloo News, because they had the little weekly news clips from everything that happened in that town on that week. So-and-so visited so-and-so. Is there any tip you have on trying to go week by week through the entire file?
I found that a lot of times it's on the same page. Like, so the news is on page 3 of 4. And the one newspaper where a lot of my ancestors had, I found them in, was on Ancestry. And so Ancestry has like a calendar of the dates that the newspaper it had was on there. And so then I would always then click on the next date that it was published, open it up, just go to 3 of 4, and then find it right there.
That's what I did on this other site, but
On Fulton?
it would be very difficult.
Yep.
The heading, I guess.
Yeah, the heading, do the Boolean search, and then, pick your years, just a 1 year thing, and then, sorry. It's not user-friendly, but it's got lots of stuff. Yeah, Al, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, we had a program on newspapers once before, and I made a comment the last time, and I want to repeat the comment this
Yes.
time. When you're doing genealogy, and you're going back to your old ancestors, particularly when you're researching in the area closer to the point in time when they first came to this country. Don't stop with newspapers like the Buffalo News, the Lockport Union Sun and Journal. Check the ethnic newspapers. Like, for example, my grandparents, who died young in the 1920s, they never had an obituary in the Buffalo News or any of those papers that preceded it. But they're in Jeanette Sheliga. And even to this day, my name appears 100 times more frequently in the Ampoule Eagle than it does in the Buffalo News or the Union Sun and Journal, because these ethnic newspapers are focusing in detail on the community that may have been important to your ancestor.
Really good tip. That's awesome. I need to add that one into my slide presentation. Yeah.
A great blog is the Ancestors Hunt. I
I've heard
don't
of
know if
that
you're
one.
familiar with it, but one day I was playing around and he had a list of states and counties, new papers that were listed by their libraries. So I went to Iowa, I went to Kingsley, and I went to the library and I found a whole bunch of newspapers with my husband's grandfather, who was an auctioneer, with all kinds of advertisements for what he was doing. It was great.
Very neat.
The Ancestors Hunt.
Yeah, that's a good one. And at the bottom of the handout too, there's a couple of links, like Cindy's list has an area for newspapers, so that's a link to links. And there's a Wikipedia page that says lists of online newspapers. And I don't know how up to date it is, but you know, there's a couple other sources too, so that's wonderful. There's a couple of them that I found in preparing this, you know, that link to other pages that link to, you know, but you can do, you know, searches to to find it. You had your hand up earlier?
Oh, I was just going to say that the Polish Genealogy Society is digitizing the Genealogical.
Nice. Where are they going to put it?
Well, on their website.
Okay.
You
For
kind of have,
members access?
pardon me?
For members access, or?
Anybody can ask for a particular lookup or whatever, and I think it's going to be like $5 for non-members. But, you know, I think it's going to be translated to English because, you know, the paper was originally in Polish.
Yeah, that's great. When do you know when they'll be done?
Right now they're having a fundraiser trying to come up with $6,000 to finish it. So it's an ongoing project.
That's wonderful.
But part of it is up. I don't remember what the years are that are up already.
Very neat. Anyone else have any questions or any newspaper items to share? Yeah.
Well, you were talking about, you know, newspaper clippings that you find in, you know, your treasure trove. I had one that I inherited, and every time I looked at it, this woman looked like my grandmother. But, you know, the caption under there had, you know, Mrs. So-and-so Kaminsky, you know, she was the oldest person at that time or something, so the mayor was, you know, congratulating her. And I was like, she's got to be related somehow or other. So I did some research on her, and I found her maiden name. And I sent a copy of the clipping to my cousin in Poland, and she did some research on her end. And this woman, either that generation or the generation, you know, like her parents or her grandparents, one of them had married, her mother was the first wife of my grandmother's grandfather or something like that. So there was a relationship,
Yeah.
you know, and the features carried down. But just looking at the article, it was like, why did they keep this?
Yeah, it could just be someone they knew, or it could be a family member.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's great that you were able to figure it out. Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. Some of the refreshments we have for you. And our program next month is October 25th.
25th.
And Craig Bacon will be speaking on the Erie Canal.
The Erie Canal,
Okay.
local bridges.
So this went from the 25th to the 18th and back to the 25th?
Yeah. We're sorry.
Okay.
It's Cindy's fault.
Still young
So-
to us, Cindy.
Yeah. So Erie Canal and the local bridges and things like that. So on October 25th. So, all right, thank you guys.